So let's start with the rapid fire round. The first question is, at what age do you want to retire?
Never.
How long does it take you to get ready in the mornings?
15, 20 minutes?
Most embarrassing moment of your life?
Tough to answer that one. Many of them. I can't tell you one.
Favorite color?
Blue.
What time of day are you most inspired?
1 a.m.
How many hours of sleep can you survive on?
Survive on 5, 6. Ideally, I get 7, 8.
The city in which the best kiss of your life happened?
Paris.
Pick one, Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk?
Elon Musk.
The biggest mistake of your career?
It was linked to manufacturing a product, but that actually led to the best outcome of my career as well. So it's balanced out.
How do you relax?
Meditation.
How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
3.
A habit of yours that you hate?
Expectations.
The most valuable skill you've learned in life?
Thinking from fundamentals.
Your favorite Netflix show?
Recently, Gentlemen.
One word description of your leadership style?
Empathetic.
Coffee or tea to kickstart your day?
Coffee all the way.
Top priority in your daily schedule?
Productivity.
Ideal vacation spot for relaxation?
Ibiza.
Key factor for maintaining a work-life balance?
Focus, time off, meditation, and high productivity at the moments that matter, and then high relaxation at the moments where there's the time to do that.
All right, so that was the end of the rapid fire.
This episode is sponsored by Outgrow.co, the world's first all-in-one interactive content builder. Use Outgrow to build quizzes, calculators, tests, polls, forms, contests, and chatbots to generate leads and keep your audience engaged. Sign up for a free trial at https://outgrow.co.
We can move on to the longer questions, which you can answer with as much time and ease as you like. So the first one is, can you describe your leadership philosophy and how it has shaped your approach as co-CEO of VanMoof?
It's basically based on the assumption that my role is to find the best people in every vertical of the business, the best people that are better than me, way better than me at, engineering, software, apps, finance, supply chain, manufacturing, and so on, and to just give them the tools, whether there's, the material or whether they're, work environment, culture, to really perform at their best. Why? Because if you do that, you get a 1 + 1 = 3 situation where this environment you nurture effectively provides you much more than you expect, right? And I do think that the opposite is true. So positive work environment where we emphasize people collaborating and we really understand the difficulties they go through and the challenges they have to overcome.
So do you have any interesting example, story, or anything of a leadership challenge that you faced and how you overcame it?
Yeah, so I think with VanMoof, what was very interesting is that when we took over the company, we had, it came out of a huge crisis. So there was a lot of tensions in different teams and people blaming each other from different teams and offices and so on, right? So I came in there as the new external player that's here to fix the situation, right? So it's very difficult to take a lot of people that, they don't hate each other, but superficially kind of, and make them work together. That's the first step, but then they have to agree and become productive together, right? So that was probably my biggest leadership challenge to date. And the way you solve that is, again, transparency, honesty, sitting down and communicating. If you do that well enough, putting your own shoes on the field, right? Being there, facilitating communication and transparency and sharing ideas effectively, progressively. If the people are the right people for your project and we all have the same goal, things equilibrate they balance out, and then you kind of create this connection where you leave the past behind and you can focus on the future in a very productive manner.
Would you say VanMoof is out of this crisis period now for good?
Finally, yes. It took a while, but we're good now.
So looking at the future then, what do you see as the most significant trends currently shaping the future of the e-bike industry?
I think the trends are going to be on the business model. First of all, it's going to be much more reliant on, dealership and after sales partners. You also, on the product side, are going to have more companies that need to focus on aesthetics, on design, on functionality, on connected features, which are actually, very simple to use and very intuitive, but very tough to build. Typically, the more intuitive a complicated feature is, the more difficult it is to fully realize, right? So these are the trends I think that will push on my side of on the e-bike and e-scooter side. And then you can extend micromobility to become, more energy efficient, cheaper, more sustainable, and in a way, of course, to grow much more widely throughout society to replace the things they need to replace today.
Quite so a bit of a twist question then. Are there any anti-trends or fake trends out there that you think one should not get involved in?
Within micromobility, I think that concept of you need to add AI or computer vision or all these things to e-bikes, it sounds cool on the pitch deck, it sounds cool on the website, but really when you use the product, it's not adding anything to the user but cost, complexity, and issues of reliability, right? So I would steer away from that. But there's a lot more stuff you can do with electromechanical systems, software, apps, backends, and so on, that can really serve your users. Might sound less cool, but on the long term, they will just add much more value to the user experience, to your brand, to your company, everything.
So looking back, you mentioned efficiency as one of the things. How does VanMoof integrate sustainability into its business model and long-term goals?
Okay, so that's a good question because it's so core in our industry, right? There's kind of this general knowledge that what we're doing by nature is targeted towards better sustainability, towards whether that's climate change, whether that's urban environments being more friendly for people that live there. And on the other side, you then have the supply chain aspect, right? So at our scale, when we're restarting the business, when we're trying to scale up again and provide our great product to as many people as we can, there's only so much we can do ourselves, right? So we look at packaging, we look at what we do with user manuals. We select the battery cells of really big famous suppliers such as Panasonic that then have programs to recycle the cells. And on other things, we haven't been able to fully look at it yet, whether that's maybe some plastic, some components we use, but that's in the pipeline. In the future, once we're sustainable, back in the game fully, we'll be able to really look into that. And of course, ultimately, the goal is to be fully carbon zero, net zero, and to really help as much as possible on the kind of green evolution of our society.
And how are you measuring the success of these sustainability initiatives?
So the way we look at that is basically by project accomplishments. How much part, like within a product we ship, for example, to start with, how many parts satisfy our requirements, how many parts still need to be worked on to get there. And then once you go from product material, like real physical objects, you then look at the backend, right? So we're running all these programs and these systems, let's say on the cloud. Do we need this? It's consuming a certain amount of energy with those partners. Although it's also a bit their responsibility to make sure that energy comes from the right place. On our end, our responsibility is to minimize, I would say how much work is needed to deliver the features we want. And so that we deliver the best experience we can as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, so sustainability is one thing. But talking of innovation then, what is VanMoof's approach to innovation in product development, for instance, and how do you stay ahead of the competition?
That's a great question because that's actually very, very difficult. And so there are specific people in the company whose full-time job is literally experience design. These people will then look at use cases. They'll look at, what do the riders need? What can we do to really add to the experience? And you don't think about the riders don't want, the riders or the customers don't really know what they want. That applies to all of us, right? It's just once we use something, if it's intuitive enough and good enough, it touches you and you get used to it. You get addicted. You can't go back to something else, right? So that's where you want to be. You want to reach that spot where you deliver something that doesn't necessarily, attract people from the outside. A good thing for us is the boost button. But once you get used to using it, right, you cannot go back to another product. So that's what you need to package in all the products you create, I think, in my opinion. And the way we do that, we have people specialized in identifying those features, identifying the flows to create them, what needs to happen with the relevant teams to make that, again, to materialize that. And that will be with them with engineering, software, apps, manufacturing, supply chain, and so on. So it's very complicated. It involves a lot of stakeholders. And that's why, looking at consumer needs first and then leveraging good communication and very, very clever people, much more clever than I, to actually execute on all those requirements.
So speaking of consumer needs, then how do you balance customer feedback with innovation during this product development process?
Well, it's extremely important and also very difficult as well, because again, it comes back to people don't really know what they want, which means sometimes they really need to get familiar with a product to really realize how useful and impactful it is to their lives. So it's an open channel. You need to have those people, which are experienced designers, constantly in touch with your user base, with your writers. They need to be in their communities, sense check, this goes well, this goes bad, or look at customer support and so on, and then gather that information. And then once you have all that information, you can suddenly see these are the things I can fix and act on. These are the things we can't do anything about. These are the things, let's see, maybe it'll time out, or maybe it's actually needed and we'll act on it. So it's about watching it, again, communication, being involved, caring about being present in those communities is so important, because if you don't care, you're not going to put the effort nor the resources to get the information you need out of those kind of circles of communication.
And so overall, what would be the biggest challenges in scaling VanMoof, and how have you addressed them?
Okay, so I think you can take VanMoof's model and expand it to any company trying to scale up a hardware, smart, connected system that relies on backend infrastructure, right? Especially more in our case that these are quite expensive products to make and of course to sell as well. And so the problem with that is you just need a lot of resources that is spent very efficiently to max out what you get out of those resources, right? And, at the startup, pre-scale up stage, we're kind of scaling up now. So we're more at the scale up stage. That's even more important because you have a fixed amount of resources from which you need to maximize the output to get where you want to be, to either become profitable and cash positive, so you get, much more resources, or get more investors involved, right? And so the challenge lies there, right? Because it's so complex. Each of those products, they require electronics, they require software, they require mechanical design, many teams to be involved. It's like a big choreography to put it all together, in a way, dance together so that the products come properly out of the lines. And then you need to do that efficiently and well without mistakes. Because again, if you push that out and there's a problem, you need to either recall that product or fix it once it's on the field, right? And you could see it almost as once it leaves our arms, it leaves our factories, our stores, our warehouses, it's much more expensive, much more difficult for us to change anything anymore, right? Software is okay and that's actually why we did it. We have already our updates, but on everything that's physical, it's tough. So it's about watching this whole system of creating real physical products that are good enough to be propagated to the wider world with a high level of confidence, of course, and doing that efficiently. It's never cheap. It's always more expensive than you think, but you need to be confident at the end of it that you took the best path you could to make it efficient. That's how you maximize your chances that you can scale up. No one is ever certain they can do that properly, but I would say that's how you maximize your chances.
So how damaging is a recall if it happens overall? We've got a lot of companies that have had to do it, like Tesla and others.
Yeah, so it's a recall is very damaging for many reasons. Well, the first one that's obvious is just the financial cost, right? You need the cost of bringing those products back. You need the cost of financing the teams to take care of the recall and repair what's needed. Sometimes you have to dump the products and create new ones. A recall is extremely damaging financially and materially as the first thing. The second side of it is with your brand, your customer trust, right? I think a lot of people rightly look at the brand as a bank of trust. It is kind of a name that carries all these positive things that it did for the people it targets. And those people in return talk about it positively, they trust it. And that also offers they're able to forget them more easily, right? Forgive them more easily, sorry. And so in our case, when you look at recalls, the way we think about it is that it's also almost as or more damaging to the brand as it is financially, right? Because you break that trust quite heavily. Someone is using your product, they're happy, and suddenly because of something you did wrong, they have to give it back, they have to relinquish using it for a while. You don't know if they're going to get it back. And once they get it back, how can they be sure 100% that whatever problem was so intense that it required that callback is actually, fixed properly. So I would say that recalls are something that you absolutely must manage and make sure you prevent. You can only do that up to the last minute where your product, I would say your controls, your warehouses. After that, it becomes a huge problem. But it's also very difficult to foresee everything. The world is the real world. You've got all these issues happening all the time that you can't control. And so you, again, have to do the best you can within that environment with that in mind.
Okay, so let's use your response there to segue a bit into marketing and branding. What strategies does VanMoof use to engage with its customers and build a loyal community?
Yeah, so that's quite interesting. I think the company has always been very product focused. It was first create the best product ever, a product that once people use, that's very important. Actually, we're in that ecosystem. Once people use the product, it's very difficult for them to go back to something else, right? Just because the experience, the intuitive feel of the ride and the pride of ownership to them is higher than any other thing available on the market, right? First step. And then once you've done that, you then create a community who you interact with clear values. What defines you as a brand? What is your mission? What is your vision? And then everything has to stem from that it needs to be felt very clearly by your riders. And then your riders will talk about that and expand your audience. And then you can, on top of that, of course, do your marketing that, again, align with those roles and, directions that you have. For example, in our case, our vision is really to become the definitive city ride to the proudest riders in the world. Of course, to those who know, we had a bit of a difficult situation last year. So the company is a process of restarting in a way. And in our case, therefore, this year is really about rebuilding trust, rebuilding, I would say, the love of our audience for us, so that the following years we can comfortably and constantly deliver to them against the best products ever. And what's interesting, I'll close that question with something our CMO always says to the team, which is, to us, it's like we had a best friend, we betrayed that best friend, and now we want to come back to them and tell them, oh guys, we're back, look, we're so much better. They smile at us, they stay away, they're like, yeah, of course. So the point from there is to make promises from far away when they look at us with a lot of doubts, and then a few months later, deliver. And then again, promise, deliver. At some point, hopefully, again, it's all subjective, nothing is sure here, but hopefully they will come back to you and start loving you and trusting you again if they see the new direction. And you recreate that relationship with your best friend. And so for us at VanMoof, right now, which is a very specific case, that's what we're trying to do.
And so in this new relationship that you're building, what is your approach to launching new products? And how do you generate excitement and anticipation amongst your loyal audience?
That's a good question, very important. So when we create a new product, again, the experience design, the user feeling, the emotion around the product is so important, much more than all the gadgets that you can list, let's say, on a data sheet at the end of a catalog, right? It's really when the person jumps on the bike, they touch that button, how does it feel? When they ride it, how does it feel? When the app connects automatically and automatically unlocks your vehicle, how does it feel? So once you've done that sufficiently well, you're confident that the product talks for itself, right? So when you want to go to a new market, the first thing you would do is talk about it, is to promise what that product can be, right? To show the people how proud you are and what it can deliver. You then want to go to whoever carries already, customer trust in those industries. So it'll be press, general press, specialized press, sometimes content producers, influencers, and you don't promise them anything. You just give them the product. They will then look at it, use it, and they will show that all the promises you made are actually delivered through that product. And that's the first layer of trust you build. Once you've done that, you can then constantly start communicating around all the things you've done. And you have that solid, I would say, foundation and structure and support of all the claims you're making, to show that, yeah, this is what this is. People agree with us. Trust those people, you see we've done it. And then you can propagate the word and launch. And another thing is that in those cases, everyone, even the professionals that deal with it, tend to underestimate the value of word of mouth. I think it's still one of the leading tools to convert customers, to engage them with your brand, and everything else kind of supports that, much more than it's just something that happens on the side, for example.
And when it comes to launching new products in new geographical markets, are there any challenges that you're facing, any initiatives you plan to make?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the magic of marketing and human civilization. Very generalist to say that, but the point is, if we go to, you have Europe, or even let's look at the States, right? You have the United States. Everyone from outside sees it at once as one country, but someone living in California, or Tennessee, or Texas, Pennsylvania, or New York thinks in a different way, travels to work in a different way, interacts with the press and their environment in a different way. They have sometimes different expectations. They're used to different kind of prices, different kind of products that are present or not present around them. So I would say when you look at the US, it's better and simpler than, let's say, Europe, because at least everyone speaks the same language. So that's something you're able to do easily. And there's an overarching set of rules that you can base yourself on, although, of course, each state has its own rules, right? So the challenge is to deal with each state and all the specificities and so on, but that's easier there. When you look at Europe, I think it's a big mistake to look at Europe as a single market. It's not. You've got France with its own rules, customs, prices, expectations. Germany, different language, same. Everything's different. Different customer behavior, different online behavior. They don't purchase the same amount online compared to French people. Same with the Netherlands. And of course, you have the UK, which is now out of Europe, but it will be the same. The great thing about Europe is that it allows for a company, once you've done all that marketing work and cultural fit and making sure you talk to people in the right way, then the rules make it very easy to, convey around your product, and, it kind of removes friction to build a solid foundation. But so dealing with human specific local cultural points, I would say is one of the biggest challenges into addressing different markets. You really cannot and shouldn't just copy what you do in one place in another place. And sometimes, for example, in the US, you'll have that even within a country where there's different states.
And so in all of this, how important, you mentioned different geographical locations, different products, how important is storytelling in VanMoof's marketing strategy here? And how do you craft compelling narratives around these products?
So that's so important, because in the end, it's something from the ages. We have stories from Plato, Aristotle, thousands of years old stories, right? And those have survived and come through the ages because we care about them. We love them. I would say even our own life is a story, right? You create your own story and you follow it and you act in it. And so I think as humans, we love that. And that's why it's probably the most important thing in marketing. And so storytelling is really fundamental throughout, the marketing program as a whole. But then when you cut, separate pieces, each of those pieces need to have a sub-story that makes sense with the wider one, right? So how do you do that? That's why a brand value, a brand narrative, that's why a mission, a vision, some pillars of culture, like internal cultures you have for your brand, are so important, because they provide the building blocks, the tools for your teams to develop the right narrative and the right stories that is aligned with your mission, your vision, and your goal. And those will differ widely between companies, right? But once you've got these fundamentals, you can then craft what people will relate to with respect to what you're trying to achieve and your product. So I would say that storytelling is probably a huge differentiator between successful businesses, and not only businesses, institutions, projects, endeavors, and the ones that fail. And it's not the only thing, but it's definitely a very important one.
So let's take a break from all the marketing talk, and now you can tell us a bit about your daily schedule. You wake up in the morning, and then what?
So I wake up in the morning. When I have time, I'll either meditate for a while or do a sports session. I'll go to the gym. Then I'll go to the office around 9 a.m. So not too early. Work nonstop up to, let's say, 7 p.m. most days, sometimes much more. Sometimes if I'm lucky and everything is smooth, I might leave a bit earlier. And throughout that day, I fast. So I don't have food in the day, just drink water, coffee. I found that, really increases your energy levels, makes it easier to focus. After that, if I have it in the morning, I'll then go to the gym. And at night, we'll have a nice dinner, sometimes much less healthy than I would like. And effectively, before sleep, have a big meditation to reconnect a bit with myself. Not much to do with my professional life. That's much more personal. And then go to bed and repeat. If you do that properly and you maintain, I found the right balance, which I didn't have always, you then become much more productive. Your ability to focus improves, your ability to memorize projects, your ability to execute, and to see the step-by-step every day when you're dealing with really complex operations, with really challenging projects. That's currently, to the level of my young experience, the best format I've put in place. And, it's still evolving. Let's see. I don't think there's one way to go about this.
It sounds like a very Steve Jobs kind of inspired lifestyle.
I don't know much about his lifestyle, to be honest with you, but what I know is he did follow a similar spiritual belief system and a similar approach to innovation. Again, I didn't do that on purpose. Kind of, if you look at it objectively, there's really high-level things that just transpires the best. And so I think maybe that's why he was saying there's a parallel. But I'm sure many other people in many other industries and jobs actually have a similar routine.
All right, so another question from our audience. What qualities are you looking for people who might want to apply to VanMoof or in the mobility sector for jobs?
Okay. So, well, first, almost and logically, they need to be great at what they do. I think, not all companies or jobs need to have really, really talented people. But in our case, we have such challenges to go over and such obstacles to overcome that we really need, overachievers, people that are strong, driven, that can really take on, by strong, I mean that are able to take their vision forwards, and that are intelligent and adds to the general pool of people, and adds ideas and, innovation and so on, right? So that's the first thing. And, it's like most companies that have to overcome these huge challenges, you need these kind of talent. Now, the second layer is once you've satisfied that, right? You want to make sure that it's someone that will fit in your work environments, that will fit in your culture. And I think that's much more important than some people think, because if you're managing to stabilize a culture where people love to work, where they're more productive, when they can interact more, leading to more innovation, again, leading to 1 + 1 = 3, meaning you output more than you initially thought, then that's amazing. Now, the problem with that is that's fragile, right? If you put someone in there that doesn't match that, and it might not be that they're not nice, it might be something else, just a specific character, emotional thing that doesn't match the culture, then I think the damage it can have on the long term can be huge. It's also very pernicious, so you don't immediately see it and come, after. So it's very important to watch out for that. And on top of culture, it needs to be someone that you're happy interacting with, someone that makes you happy to go to the office, to see them. No one wants to go to the office with people they don't like. That's the place you spend the most time sometimes in the day. So important to make sure that's laid out properly.
So having said everything that you've said today and the ideal people you want to work with and the vision and everything, could you tell us then what is your vision for the future of VanMoof and where do you see the company in the next 5 to 10 years?
That's interesting. So, let's start by what we're doing this year. We're trying to rebuild trust, right? So promise, deliver, access to spare parts, service network, just make sure that we can keep our riders on the road and we can make them happy. We keep innovating on our app, on our software, adding services and so on. So everything that's out there should keep getting better and better for our riders, right? Now, once you've done that successfully, which is really the core of what we're doing this year, you then want to look at, why is VanMoof alive? Why does it need to exist as a company? There's many companies that do e-bikes and e-scooters and so on. And our belief is that there's very few companies that actually invest that much in rider-focused design, aesthetics, really high-performance vehicles that make their riders proud to own them. And so, we believe that that's VanMoof's reason to exist, to make journeys a joy. We should be happy to go to places when you live in a certain place, and that I think can be delivered by our products. And so going forward, our goal is to create products, and we already have a product out there that we fully believe does that, but then add onto that multiple iterations. So every 2-3 years, we'll probably iterate on each product just to have the right time to innovate and test and make sure it's reliable, repairable. And then we'll add other pipelines of vehicles as well, just to make sure we can satisfy our market and give them the best vehicle we can have every day. So if you ask me, and that's kind of what a vision is, right? It's where do you want to end up at some point, and to us, it's really to be the most definitive city ride to the proudest riders. And if you look at the timeline, I think 5 to 10 years is probably the amount of time we need, or hopefully we need, to get there. Right, so that's the plan, and to do that, we're creating, urban mobility tools that really make going around a pleasure in urban environments. And we'll just work as hard as we can to get there. It's challenging, but we believe in it, so we'll keep going.
So the last question for you is of a personal kind. What would you be doing in your life if not this?
My dream, I started as an aerospace engineer. I was fascinated by the stars, by space systems. I did a little bit of research for almost a year in advanced space systems. So it's like, nuclear batteries for satellites, miniaturized satellites, all that stuff. I left this because, it's very government funded. It's very academic, research based, right? Until, SpaceX triggered this whole renewal of the industry, which is amazing. So, if I was in a world without any constraints, I would probably be working on the next spaceships and helping develop that. But that's, maybe will happen one day. For now, I think, I'm the happiest with what I do. I think the impact we have on people's lives are amazing. And the products we're developing at VanMoof come quite close to spaceships and space vehicles. So that's probably the best place I can be right now. And I'm super excited to make that happen. Let's see in 30 years when we're all working on Mars.